First things first, I want to thank you guys for coming out tonight, supporting some local comedians, supporting some local comedy. You guys shows a lot of goodness. Thank you very much. But no, I want to thank you guys for supporting local comedy because I am a local comedian, kind of in the truest sense. I was born here, I was raised here, I still live here. And I find these days, kind of living around here, I run into a lot of people I went to high school with. Unfortunately, I run into a lot of people who still define you by the way they remember you from high school. Because like there's this place I like to go to get sandwiches, and there's this guy behind the counter, and I don't know, I don't remember him at all. He knows me, but he only knows me through this guy named Dan. So every time I go in, it's the same little song and dance. It's, you seen Dan lately? And he talks like this because he's a mouth breather. I know we use that term in the pejorative sense, like, oh, that guy's a real mouth breather. Like, no, he actually breathes out of his mouth. And he's like, you seen Dan lately? Here's the thing about Dan. I haven't seen Dan lately. I don't want to see Dan lately. I don't want to see Dan ever, okay? Dan and I were sort of friends for like 2 weeks in high school. He was a loser. He smelled. I went to his house smelled. His pets smelled. Even his parents smelled like a little bit. It was awful. I'll tell you what I think about Dan. I found out that Dan worked at the Applebee's in town, the one over at the U-Mall. Because of him, I have never set foot in that Applebee's. Not now, not ever. All right? And this is like 8 years ago I heard he worked there. Like, this is like not new information, but I am not going to feel good about that place until I hear there was like a fire and it burned down and they found his remains inside. And even then, I'm going to want to go check it out for myself. Like, I'm not. Until then, permanent Dan ban, as far as I'm concerned. I have stretched this ban across state lines. I am serious about this. I don't go to any Applebee's, ever. Just in case he got called up through like the Applebee's farm system or something like that. Like, I don't want to run into him. I have blacklisted an entire national chain of casual dining restaurants because of Dan. So no, Dan friend, which is what I call this guy because I don't know his name. I'm like, Dan friend, I have not seen Dan lately. He's a wild man. And that's what he says. That's what Dan Friend says every time. Have you seen Dan Friend? No. He's a wild man. Like, he's on the Dan Street team or something like that. Like, he's trying to hype Dan up, get me back on Team Dan. Like, listen, I don't need to have seen Dan lately to know he is not a wild man, okay? Showering once a week does not make you a wild man. Illustrating and starring in your own comic books does not make you a wild man. Unfortunately, believe it or not, the conversation devolves from here. At this point, he then brings up people who I don't remember at all from high school, I have no recollection of, and I'm just trying to distract myself from conversation. I'm like staring at the floor. I am reading the backs of candy bars, like, oh, 250 calories, that is nutrageous. Oh my god, oh, I'm sorry. You were talking and not making my sandwich? It's a roast beef and bread, not a fucking Rubik's Cube, let's go. So, like, he'll bring up people I don't remember, like, you remember Stephanie Ducharme? No, not at all. Not one bit, nothing, blank. Oh, she's changed, man. Like, what did I just say? Like, she obviously hasn't changed in the sense that I don't know her. Like, the biggest change, as far as I'm concerned, she could have made in her life, knowing me, and she hasn't done that. But believe it or not, like, at this point, the worst part of this, as if this needs a worst part, the worst part of this is he fails to elaborate on how she has changed. Like, you have dragged me down into this so far, you have sucked me in. That's just bad storytelling. Like, even for $8 an hour, man, that's bad storytelling. I expect better. Because let's face it, change can mean a lot of things. Like, there's a lot of territory to cover. Oh, she's changed, man. Graduated top of her class from law school. Does pro bono work in inner cities. Oh, that's nice. I wouldn't expect him to know what pro bono meant, but whatever, okay. Oh, she's changed, man. She's a dude now. See? Like, there is a big gap between lawyer hero and dude that used to be a girl. So, the way I see it, ideally the end of the story is, oh, she's changed, man. She's a dude now. And I'm her. Bam! Because that solves two problems. Number one, I get the end of the story. And number two, I finally know this guy's name. But ever since Thank you. Ever since I started working the story into my act, a couple of things actually kind of concerned me. Number one, I have changed some of the names sort of protect the innocent regardless of how repulsive they are. And so I feel like, number one, there's some poor bastard working over at Applebee's named Dan who just became collateral damage in this little thing we're doing right now. Like, he's going to find out about it, then he's going to find me. Then you're gonna find me, hopefully, in the woods, bound, gagged, with like Southwest chicken strips in every orifice, like a honey mustard pentagram scrawled on my chest, like, tell people I smell. The other thing I'm worried about, though, is that maybe the real Dan Friend is gonna show up at one of my shows, like, and he's gonna put it together, like, hey, that's about me, I think. And it's like, well, like, wait, no, this dumb son of a bitch, like, he's not gonna know. Like, he's gonna come to the show and be like, hey, man, great set. That Dan Friend sounds like a real douchebag. So, you seen Dan lately? Applause makes me thirsty. No, I'm waiting for him to find me on Facebook. But even then, like, he probably wouldn't want to be my friend. He would just suggest that I be Dan's friend. Like, you should be Dan's friend. No, I will not be Dan's friend, internet. I'll have to stare at that picture of him on Facebook, dressed like Venom. No, not even Spider-Man, like Spider-Man's enemy. Like, that's like 300 level dork class right there. Like, the picture of Venom serving up jalapeno poppers. Venom eating good in the neighborhood. But no, I don't want to look at that. He hasn't found me yet, which means he must not be looking, because you can find anything these days. Google getting better by the day, improving daily. Though I'm starting to think it's maybe going to Google's head a little bit. I think Google's a little more smug than their cheerful, bright-colored logo with a heavy belief. Here's an example. Let's say I'm doing a search for The Grapes of Wrath, John Steinbeck novel. Nothing gets laughs like Depression-era literature, I find. So I'm doing a search, and I want you to think that I've read the book when I only really got about halfway through the table of contents. There's gonna be a chapter 7. Oh, fuck this noise, I'm going So anyway, doing a search for Grapes of Wrath, and I don't know, maybe I'm just not paying attention, maybe I have fat little hot dog fingers that slide around the keys, I don't know, like I'm just not, blah, 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 typing it in, and I hit send, and Google gives you this. Didn't you mean Grapes of Wrath? And I swear if you listen carefully, you can hear your computer exhale in disgust. No, okay. I obviously didn't. I meant Grapes of Wrath, okay? Like, what? No, I meant Grips of Worth. What did you think I meant? Has anyone ever searched for Grips of Worth? Is that even a real thing? Between searching your own name and why can't I own a Canadian? Like, has anyone ever slipped in a Grips of Worth in there? Like, come on. Like, no, I meant don't sass me, Google. Like, I didn't do a search for attitude, alright? Think you're so big just because a Google is a lot of something. Whatever. Google's like that know-it-all, like, overachieving cousin of yours who just talks down to you at Christmas. Google's like Michael, he's a lawyer from Connecticut, he's on your mom's side, or something. Didn't you mean Grapes of Wrath? Didn't you mean to read this in high school like everybody else? Didn't you mean to do more with your life? So of course your only recourse at this point, type insults into the Google search box. Like, I don't know, I'm going to show Google who went to high school. Yeah, I'll take that. And so you're pounding away, and like there's just profanity flowing from your fingertips, and you're not even looking at the keys. Your eyes are closed half the time. Oh, F this stuff down. You're pissing Google off, and you hit send, and then Google gives you this. Didn't you mean Google can suck my balls? I'm not even giving it the satisfaction. No, Google. I meant sick my bilfs, okay? You can sick my bilfs, you can sick them long, and you can sick them hard. I leaned on the D for a while. Sick it, Google. I'm Pat Lynch. Thank you guys.